Welcome to the channel, guys. Today we're going to install a rear quick change kit for a Kawasaki ZX6R from L74 Race and Track Products. We'll start by removing the rear axle nut. This is 32. Once that's off, we'll be removing the axle blocks. Remove that axle. And the rear wheel should be free. Get the chain off. Remove the caliper. And slide that wheel up. Next we'll be removing the caliper line. For the bracket it's a 10mm. Next to remove the brake line, 12mm. Now to place in the new brake line. Once that's nice and tightened with the 12mm, move down to here. Same with the two washers. And into the caliper. Check for fitment. Yep. While that's in place, just pull that up. And we'll be able to fit that in just here with the bracket. Using the original 10mm bolt that was supplied at the start and the bracket slide, we'll just mount that in there. Once we've tightened that nicely, make sure you adjust it to the angle you want it to, so that on the inside it doesn't interfere with here. I ran the line this way just to use up the excess, as I didn't want it to hang down below here. There's no way to... Next we're going to undo the nipple and bleed the system. So far I haven't had to, as when I took this bolt off, the brake fluid stayed there as the cap was sealed here. Now that it's all back together, it's obviously air throughout this entire line and into the caliper. So as soon as I take this cap off, it should allow that to flow through into here and out to the nipple. And as I do that, I'll just top up this with extra brake fluid. Taking off the cap now. Once the nipple is loose, if you're able to find a bit of tubing, here I've just used the end off a soap dispenser. Just heat it up a little bit and moulded it over the nipple. If you put it just in enough brake fluid here, so it prevents it sucking air back up into the system as you're pumping it out. This way you'll also be able to see the air pockets as they come through, as you can see there. Once no air bubbles are left, tighten it back up with the 8mm. And next we're on to the chain adjusters. First we'll have to remove the original 12mm bolts here. Now in comparison to the two, pick the one with the spacer on the right for the right hand side. So in order to get the spacer in through there, we'll need to loosen this first. In order to get the spacer through here, you'll have to loosen this little Allen nut inside there so it can slide on. You'll also use these later on to tighten this nicely up against on the spacer. Fits in like so, but first of all, let's put this. Also, I found the original bolt here was too long to fit in this gap, so I opted for a shorter one and a bit of Loctite to hold it in. So this is how we're looking halfway through. Got the bolt in there, Loctite. Let's tighten it up. Before we tighten it fully, just need to install this in order to hold that in place. Otherwise, as you tighten this, this will tend to pull out towards here. As you can see, add a little bit of Loctite to these to keep it. And before you put this, tighten this in place, you'll just need to tighten these, get them flush on where you want it positioned, and then tighten these too in order to, so when you take out the wheel out of the caliper, it'll hold all this together as one piece, won't move. Tighten these in place now, making sure that's nice and flush. That's all snug in place. If you need help tightening, you can always put a spanner on there for extra leverage. This side being much easier, 12mm on here. Take the original out without needing to take this off. This one slides straight in, and again with the smaller bolt with a bit of Loctite, we'll be placing that one in here. But always, before tightening this up, you want to tighten these, otherwise it will start to bow out, and then when you try and do this it won't work. So yeah, we'll tighten these ones now. Again, I don't want these rattling out, so adding a bit of Loctite onto the end of these before placing them back in. Now that those are both tightened up, I'll go onto here, tighten this up. Again, for some added leverage if needed, put that on there, and now just to bring the measurement back to 0, or match whatever you want to match the other side. For this one, I'm going to bring it back to 0, start there, tighten the chain outwards. Next, we've got two plates to install. One's the chain holder, and the other one will need some tapping, but it goes like so, and that's to hold the space. The spacer will rest on that when you place the wheel on, and then just underneath these two will need to be tapped and threaded. And meanwhile, the chain holder, again, I like to be sure with the Loctite and where the chain guard used to go, put that in place. As you can see, I've had to bend them out a little bit just to fit in place. Once that is now in place, grab the chain, pull it up and over using the drill and tap. Created this, tap this hole, and then we'll put that little bolt right in there, secure that. Perfectly done. And with that, now move on to tap the plate in here. So tapping this last one is a lot more tricky. Obviously you have to have all this done up the way we've done it so far in order to get the correct adjustment or correct measurement for the plate where it needs to be tapped. But unfortunately, for the process of actually tapping all the way through this, which the bolts will be just long enough just to get to the top of there, we do have to take this out in order to get the thread all the way through. As you can see, we've got our 2 marks here, and then again you'll also see you've got 2 different lengths, one's shorter than the other by a fraction. Obviously this shorter one goes here, which with the thickness of the plate will be about there, and the other one just a fraction longer, thickness of the plate again. So we've slid that out, and we're going to tap those threads now, and the end result, there you should have it. 2 nicely tapped threads, and the plate sitting there, obviously one's already in. Perfect. Again with the Loctite, definitely don't want these coming loose. Just done them finger tight, as now we're going to reinstall this beautifully over the top of those 2. Nice and snug. And again with this, again bring this back to 0. To match the other side. Check that fitment again of the plate. Perfect fit, lined up beautifully, nice and snug. That's why we tightened this first before we tapped these holes. Now that's nice and snug. Hold that in place where you want it and tighten these up. Final piece of the puzzle, captive spacer. Should just pop in nicely. And ready to go in. Make sure your spacers on the other side's in nicely, nice and greased. Just make sure your chain's hooked out of the way here, just around the lip of there, and now to put the wheel in. Just slide it past the caliper, slide the spacer in from the top. Hook the chain over. And we're ready for the final piece. Slide the axle bolt in. Once it's in, don't tighten it all the way up, keep it loose. Get your desired how tight your chain is, tighten your chain to your desired. And then finally tighten it. And there we have it, completed tyre quick change kit. And underslung caliper.